Hello and welcome to another edition of SuperCoach Edge. Now, Liam, last week we joked about the, hopes and dreams that presented us on the horizon post-buys, and we questioned whether it was in fact a mirage. And you fittingly used the analogy of Wile E. Coyote running into the side of a mountain that was painted with a fake tunnel. Now, the question is, in light of Tom Stewart likely being out for a minimum of 3 weeks, do we already have confirmation it is in fact a mirage, or are we the SuperCoach equivalent of Wile E. Coyote?
I reckon the SuperCoach gods are Wile E. Coyote right now. They're like, screw you, you thought you were getting through. Just sitting there laughing at us maniacally. It's been pretty tough, I have to admit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe you're right, though. I think it's the SuperCoach gods.
They're just screwing us over.
Yeah, screwing us over. And you would have seen as well, Father Bob. He actually, a lot of people know who Father Bob is. Great fellow. Followed us on Twitter, and it was the Fantasy Gods, I think it is, AFL Fantasy Gods on Twitter, saw it also, and they said, can you give us a follow? And I pulled them up and I said, hey, look, he's not going to follow, Father Bob isn't going to follow you unless you're kind to us fellow mere mortals. So just hopefully that gets through to the higher ups at in the Godland.
Godland, yes.
Yeah. But oh well.
The SuperCoach heavens.
Yeah, yeah. But it seems like every week now we are losing a big name player in the, I guess, in some shape or form, with Gawn, English, and now Stewart going down. So let's hope it comes to an end. But of course, Liam, we'll cover that big talking point and more, but not before we first delve into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
In the good, the bad, and the ugly, we run through a quick recap of how our respective rounds went, and look at some of this. You look at our scores, our overall ranking, and the trades we've made, and the players that stood out for both good and bad reasons. I kick off the segment, as listeners would know. That means I didn't win this week, shockingly. Seems to be the theme of the year. It was reasonably close. Had a score of 2,376 this week. Pretty happy with that overall, considering I did have both Hobbs's 36 and Jonathan Clark's 26 on field, and obviously had Parrish on the sidelines as well. So went up in my overall ranking just a little bit, 650 spots. So I'm sitting at 19,056th overall. So hopefully can continue just that upward trend, which will be nice.
The only way is up.
The only way is up.
Hopping back to that point, we haven't mentioned it in a while.
No, we haven't.
Probably for good reason, because we haven't been really ascending the
you have been. You have been.
Yeah, well, over the buys, but prior to that, not so much.
Yeah, true.
It's been hard going.
Yeah, it has been hard going. Onto the trades. So I went pretty aggressive with my trade strategy this week in a couple of ways. One, both options ended up being pods, and the second was just sort of being a bit aggressive and trading out English, just because I wanted to do something a bit different, I guess. So moved on Gawn and English and brought in, as I mentioned on the last podcast, 2 pod ruck options in Nank the Tank and Blixarves as well, which was a very nice. On the good, on debut, I've got big Toby Nankervis as my good this week. Most rucks have seemed to struggle against Stanley, who tends to play a bit of a negative role, especially in terms of SuperCoach scoring. But the Nank did debut with a massive 141 against Geelong on the weekend. So I was very happy with that trade-in. In the bad, I'm going to be a bit harsh with my bad and ugly this week.
Spice it up.
Yeah, I'm going to spice it up a bit. And probably less so with the ugly, but with the bad, I've got Paddy Cripps here. And I've got him there. Yeah. I know he scored 95, not too bad, on the face of it, but he just isn't reaching those same heights that he was earlier in the season. I don't know, I'm just looking at his 3-round average is 100 on the dot, and his 5-round average is 98.4. Not what I need from a midfielder. So not too happy with that overall. Needs to lift big time, if you ask me.
Yep.
Making a bit of a rocket there. In the ugly, probably less harsh, but I just feel bad. I don't like having rookies or cash cows in my ugly category because I feel it's a bit harsh. But I've got both Hobbs and Judson Clark in a week where I did have to rely on them due to injuries. I didn't need them regressing in their scoring. But on the upside, I guess, next week, they'll both firmly be planted on my bench, assuming that there's no injuries and that Parrish does actually come back this week. What about yourself, Damon? How'd you go?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. You assume that that Parrish, because he was the big cornerstone in both of our matchups, and we forgot to mention it in last week's episode that we were actually facing off in both the SuperCoach Edge League and also my Cash League. So I was very fortunate. It's very funny as well. I've noticed that if you have the same people in multiple leagues, it tends to match you up on the exact same week. It's happened multiple times now. So SuperCoach's algorithm needs to fix that up, I think, because it's it means that obviously if you have a really good week, you're going to beat that person twice over. If you have a shit one, you're going to just average it out a bit better. But yeah, I mean, that was very unfortunate for you, but we'll get into the head-to-head ranking and sort of what the go was there very shortly. But in terms of my score, was pretty happy with it. 2,454, not too shabby. Nice. Just a tad above par, but I was, however, disappointed. I mean, you've got to be disappointed about something, and it did come in the form of one of my crucial Cash League matches where just because I scored that high and I thought, like any other regular week, you'd almost be a shoe-in for the win. Not this week. There's a lot of people in a lot of my leagues sort of scored around about that mark, if not a little bit more, as my opponent did in this case here. So, yeah, a bit disappointing to lose that, but c'est la vie, it happens. I think there's in one of my Cash leagues called the Hot Shots. I have the most points scored against me, and I think I'm the 8th highest overall scorer. But obviously, despite that, with the differential there, with the most points scored against, has me in 13th spot. So, yeah, it's sort of harsh, I think, with leagues, as you know. The season there I finished in the top 500, whatever it was, I ended up not even making finals in this specific league. So, yeah, it's crazy, the ebbs and flows with head-to-head leagues. But in terms of overall ranking, climbed the ranks, albeit not as stark as I did across the buys, up 518 spots to now sit 5,122 overall. And I almost felt across the buys that I was, as you do, especially as a kid, you sprint upstairs and you start skipping a few steps.
Yeah.
That's almost what I felt like. Whereas now it's almost like I'm taking it step by step, day by day. But yeah, probably a wise move because I can feel myself tripping up at any moment and I'll be tumbling right down that ranking staircase. So we'll see how things go. But in terms of the trades, much like yourself, Liam, I think we both had we'll call it the ruck facelift because you changed both of your starting rucks, as did I. So I traded Gorney out to Wits, and I traded in English as well to Sean Hodor Darcy. Hold the door. And he held the door right in the week and he did very, very well. And as we spoke about in last week's ep, so we both opted to oust English. We would have loved to have kept him, but in my case, I wasn't able to do it. I was looking to bring in Jackson, trade out Hobbs, and then play Jeffrey. But of course, Jeffrey, it's just super coach luck. Injured his knee in like the closing minute of that game and is now out for the year. So I wasn't able to do that trade, so I had to trade at English to Darcy. It wasn't too bad, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, we'll see how we go from here in terms of trades after him. So I've kind of gone a little bit of a roundabout from where I wanted to go, but still looking at Jackson potentially. In terms of the good, even though he was the second highest scorer in my team behind Laird, Witts gets the good badge on debut for my team, much like Nank the Tank for you, because he did return a 148, which was amazingly only 12 points below his break-even. So he almost smashed his break-even of 160. Absolutely pummeled, as we referenced last week. Port's broomstick. That's who they had in the ruck, virtually. Snapped it in half, trot all over it, did well, good old Witter. And he came into my side off a discount of 26.7K the previous week and has all but bottomed out. So it was doubly sweet in terms of timing there. So I'm quite happy with that. In terms of the bad, Hobbs, he, like I mentioned, had to come in with Jeffrey injured, and he absolutely hit a brick wall, scoring just 36 and the lowest score in my team overall. And that's what ultimately held me back from scoring 2,500. So a little bit of a dent in my week, but that was just the one dent really, so I can't complain too much. But the ugly, now very similar to you, Liam, putting Cripper, but Cripper was bad. I've got a little bit harsher here because this bloke has found himself in my bad in previous weeks, and he's getting worse. And it's Jaden Short. So he wasn't the lowest scorer, but because of the fact that, again, we spoke about it in previous weeks, that the main reason his poor run of form continues is Dimmer is persisting with him in the midfield. And believe it or not, on the weekend, he had a season-high CBAs with 67% in the middle, which isn't working well for a SuperCoach scoring-wise anyway. And Vlosten, meanwhile, continues to gorge on the chips in defence that Short would otherwise gobble up, with gravy, no doubt. But, yeah, unfortunate, absolutely unfortunate. So that's kind of where I sit. And he's one that I wish I had a few more trades up my sleeve because he would be my first luxury trade at the moment, I think. Someone sent in a question, which we'll address later in the episode, about potentially trading Cripps, but Short would be first and foremost front of mind at the moment. So hopefully that changes over the coming weeks and he can shift back into defence.
Might be on our never again list otherwise.
Yes.
Let's have a quick look-see. We'll have to chat about a never again list later in the season. Let's have a quick look at the head-to-head, David. I'll let you run through it.
Yes, so I've gone out to 11 wins and 4 losses, and you are 4 wins, 11 losses. And the point differential is 662. But like I said, when you were talking about your team, a very, very close call this week for myself. And I reckon you would have most definitely had my measure had Parrish not been out of the Dons lineup. So I'm sensing off the back of your ruck facelift and the fact that it's a pod ruck facelift, it's going to go hand in hand with mine to an extent, but probably more so because they're pods. And I reckon you could cause a bit of a boil over at certain stages come the back half of the year. So there's 8 weeks to go and a point differential of only 662. You could easily make that up. If you go on a bit of a scoring run, you could come back and push me.
I hope so.
Overall, anyway.
I hope so. I hope there's I want it to cause a bit of chaos in some of the leagues as well.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And
that's you, Liam. Yep,
that's me.
I like it.
I'm quite happy seeing the world burn. The SuperCoach world. Yeah,
exactly.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's have a chat about some of the talking points because the SuperCoach world was most certainly on fire. Let's look at them a little closer in the week that was. In the week that was, we keep you up to date on the key talking points of the round. And the biggest talking point came in the form of Tom Stewart, who has been referred directly to the tribunal after bumping and concussing Dion Prestia, who was then subbed out of the game. As we record this podcast, it's expected that Stewart would miss a minimum of 3 matches and the possibility of 4+ depending on the verdict. Either way, unfortunately, at this stage of the season especially, I think you'd have to be trading him out. It's not often that you do trade out a player who's just scored 161. It's just such unfortunate, so unfortunate. But the question is then, who do you trade him to? We'll discuss the handful of options that you should be considering very shortly in our next segment.
Yes, and the other news on the agenda is the timeline for Tim English. And we tweeted about the comments made by Bevo post-match on Friday against the Hawks, where he made more of an indication that he wouldn't get up for the round 16 clash against the Lions in Brisbane. He told journos, and I quote, "Maybe with his history, he probably won't play. We'll keep him for another week and really look after him." So we spoke about it last week. We sort of read between the lines, and we said that given his mandatory 12-day recovery falls on the game day against the Lions, compounded by the fact the game is interstate and the team would need to travel on Wednesday at a minimum. It doesn't really bode well for English. And then you factor in that he did miss those 4 games through concussion last year against the Giants, culminates in him more than likely missing again. And just as I mentioned this, I did see on Twitter, I'm going to have to try and find, might sort of harp back to this during the episode, but there was, forget the journo's name. He was down at training and apparently his concussion symptoms carried over until the back end of the week just gone. So that doesn't obviously bode well. If you're still getting symptoms, you'd probably just write him off for this week at a minimum. But that leads me to think, could it potentially go beyond the 2 weeks? Hopefully not, but they'll just probably assess it on a weekly basis, but go from there. So yeah, I mean, if you've held English for 1 week at the moment, you might as well hold him for another until a bit more, information comes out about his timeline of return. But when it comes to Tom Stewart, it's a whole different ball game. So with that, let's chat about replacement options for him in The Price is Right.
The price is wrong, bitch.
In The Price is Right, we run through the top buy, sell, hold, and wait options for this round of SuperCoach. We'll chat about the pros and cons and who you should be considering trading in or out of your side this week. We'll kick off with the sells, and first off, and I'm sure it does come as no surprise, it is Tom Stewart, obviously defender eligible, 642.4k, averaging 115.5 with a break even of 74. Now, as we spoke of, Stewart has to go. You'd expect him that he'll be missing a minimum of 3 weeks. And even if you had cover on the bench, you can't really afford to have that amount of dollars on the bench, nor would you have cover the quality level of scoring that you get with Tom Stewart. We'll detail below a couple of standout replacement options, but it just kills me seeing that you're trading out a player that's just scored 161, has a break even of 74, and is priced at 642.4k. Oh, rough.
Super rough. And I feel for those people as well. And it's almost the nature of fantasy and SuperCoach, isn't it? That there's always going to be those people that trade in a player that unfortunately gets injured long term, which has happened with Gawn, as we know. But now Stewart as well, who's going to be out for a little bit of time due to suspension. And it's just terrible luck. And I know firsthand, one of our loyal listeners in JP, he said a few weeks ago that he was targeting Tom Stewart potentially this coming week because he was going to be bottoming out in his price. So he's dodged a bullet there, but there's others that unfortunately haven't. But yeah, it's a cruel mistress is SuperCoach and fantasy.
It is.
Cruel mistress.
It is.
The other sell candidate is the youngster from the Giants, Jacob Ware. Defender, 244.5k, averaging a 61.8 with a break even of 11. And regrettably, he finds himself as a sell option just purely because of the fact there are some good defender bubble boys on the table. So he presents as the most logical option. If you don't need the cash, he's definitely one you could hold with that low break even, indicating he has a little bit more cash to make potentially. And also just purely because he looks as though he's cemented his spot in the Giants lineup at the moment. So playing very, very well is the youngster. But yeah, if you need to make a bit of bank, he is the avenue to take.
Yes. Another option on the sell table is Joel Jeffrey, forward eligible, 284.5k, averaging 68.4 with a break even of 38. Now, whether it's an upgrade or a downgrade, I think either way, it's time to let Jeffrey go. He's made 157k and he's out for the remainder of the year due to having had surgery on his knee due to that injury. So just out he goes, I guess. Yeah,
see you later. Yeah, it's unfortunate because he was providing a fair bit of good coverage, wasn't he? Almost to the same level as Hobbs prior to this week just gone anyway. But yeah, the only thing that he was missing was the DPP. So unfortunate, but yeah, an easy way to make a bit of cash. But it's just annoying that you have to burn a trade and you're forced to burn a trade on him for the long-term sort of benefit of getting in bench cover. But talking of bench cover, and I just spoke of him, Ben Hobbs is that other option to potentially think about moving on. He's a forward midfielder priced at 126.6K, averaging 61.5 with a break even of 92. And yes, here's another one you can hold if you do prefer. And myself and you, Liam, I think we spoke about it off air, that he presents as a fair, decent enough sort of F7, M9 cover. And, a score of 36 on the weekend was a definite downer, but consider that form, I guess in terms of from round 8 to round 13, he didn't score below 70. So it is a little bit of a one-off, probably harping back to, I think it was his second game he scored in the 30s. He's a rookie. You can't expect him to average 70 every single week. So hopefully for his sake and the Dons as well, that he can get back on that bandwagon of scoring around about that mark. But yeah, like I said, could be a sell or a hold depending on your situation, especially how many trades you have left as well.
Yeah, definitely. He's a hold for me, just because I kind of like the cover that he provides, and I can do my trades around him, which is nice.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the buys, and we'll start off with a couple of top options to consider as replacements for Tom Stewart. And first off, it is Aaron Hall, defender eligible, 508.3K, averaging 105.3 with a break even of 51. Now Hall looks to have returned to top form in his last 2 games back after his hamstring injury, scoring a 94, followed by a season high of 153 on the weekend against the Crows. Most pleasingly, though, he took 11 of the 13 total kick-ins on the weekend. But you know what? Nah. He played on from all of them except for one. That's not good enough.
Oh, that is not good enough. Of them.
Seriously.
What are you doing?
Such a waste. Such a waste.
Pad those stats.
Exactly. You got to pad the stats. Yeah. Come on, think about it. He's also going to be a pretty big pod at the moment because he is only in 1.7% of teams. That number is sure to rise after this week, but good option. Good option. He also net 130 odd K.
Yeah, 134 or something. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, it's
if you trade him from, so that's pretty good, pretty nice, and you're getting a top defensive option as well.
Yeah, a good way to look at it. Exactly right, because it virtually you're getting in. I mean, he is a primo. Aside from the fact that his durability issues are sort of cropping up again, and there's a little bit of a scariness factor to it. But yeah, by downgrading him, you're virtually funding another upgrade with that spare 134K or thereabouts. So. Yeah, amazing. He's good option. Another good option is Jordan Dawson, defender midfield, 593.3K, averaging a 110.6 with a break even of 74. And no doubt about it, he is one of the most informed defenders at present, with a 3-game average of 126.7 and a 5-game average of 122.8. And he hasn't dropped below 100 since round 7 and flashed his high ceiling with 4 scores above 130 over that stretch. Just lifting the skirt a little bit, just giving a little bit of a flash. Like, here you go, Marilyn Monroe on the grate.
Isn't it delicious?
Sort of cools the ankles, doesn't it?
All to face the Eagles, does Dawson, and he has another go at North, who he scored 134 points against on the weekend and feasted. So, yeah, he's got a good sort of draw coming up and doesn't look to be slowing down at all. You'd be netting around about 49K or thereabouts. 49K, roughly, by downgrading Stewart to Dawson. So not too shabby there. And you're getting someone who is averaging around about that mark close to Stewart as well.
And now another option, Lockie Whitfield. Defender midfield eligible, 463.1K, averaging 85.3 with a break even of 68. And he has returned to some very good form post-injury and under the reign of Spike McVeigh, like a number of other GWS players. Little backhander there to Leon. Cameron. But he has bounced back with a 3-round average of 107.3 and 3 successive scores of over 100, which I don't think he had done this year, with scores of 118, 101, and 103, especially not. He hadn't done that, I don't think, when he was in my side. So
nope, most definitely not in my side.
Maybe that's an issue. Anyway, he doesn't come without his risks, but a downgrade from Tom Stewart will net you around 180K.
Wow. That is amazing. Imagine like what you could bring in with that sort of money.
Yeah.
I can only dream.
That's a lot of cash. That is a lot of cash.
Yeah.
We obviously all thought he was a bargain at the start of the season, and now you'll be grabbing him for just under 40K less than his starting price. So is he an ultimate bargain now?
He annoys me. He annoys me because I knew he was going to do this. I knew it was going to happen with Cogs, and that's part of the reason why we kept him. And I would have kept him had he not gone out with that, was it ankle injury, whatever he had for the two weeks leading into the bye. It annoys me because if I had more trades, I'd be willing to actually even trade in a short for a Lockie Whitfield, as crazy as that sounds, because Whitfield is showing now that he's flashing the sort of form that we were hoping he would at the start of the year when we all started with him, because he was the most, I think it was, aside from Nick Dacos, one of the highest owned players in the competition, and for good reason. Good bargain, and he's producing those good scores now. So, Lockie. But having said that, though, he does have durability issues, so keep that in mind. I want to warn, and that sort of applies as well to Aaron Hall, obviously. But I mean, with that risk comes that reward, because you are saving a fair bit of dosh. In terms of other options, so there are obviously a myriad of different options there in defence. So it goes without saying, if you are in the minority without the likes of, the big tasty options in Doherty, Sicily, Sinclair, both of those two latter guys are sort of diving in price a little bit, so you could probably hold off a little bit more to get them as a bit of a cheaper option. But these are the guys I would target outside of those we have just listed. And the other outsider options include Houston, Dale, Rich, and Vlosten. And there are, again, many more other pod options out there, but they are probably the ones of most note.
Yeah, I think those four are probably the ones that are safest. But there's definitely a few interesting pods that if I had Stewart and I was at the stage of the season I was at, I'd be loving to look at. I'm gone pod crazy now.
You've got the disease, man. You've got the infection.
I love it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to just other trading options, just, for other lines, if you don't have to worry about Tom Stewart. And the first one is Lukey Jackson, forward and ruck eligible, 396.5K, averaging 85.8 with a break-even of 27. Now, he played his first full game in the ruck for the Ds, and he looked right at home, scoring 122. This consisted of 21 disposals, which was an equal season high. Key to goal, had 18 hitouts, 4 marks, and an impressive 9 tackles. Now, we spoke of his ability last week as a bit of an agile ruck, being the mould of sort of a Brodie Grundy, playing as that ruck and an extra midfielder, and he played that to a T on the weekend. He has a low break-even still of 27. And while his ceiling will no doubt be capped once Gawn does return, I think he could be best seen as almost an F7 and possible R3 cover in the later part of the year. I mean, I'd probably be playing at F7 and then swinging him into the rucks if you ever needed sort of some cover there for the inevitable injury that seems to be afflicting the ruck line.
Yeah, exactly. That's almost the infection that's doing the rounds. So whilst you've got the pod infection, they've got the ruck injury and everything else infection. But yeah, I am definitely looking at him. As I said, I was looking at him last week. Unfortunately, Jeffrey scuttled those plans, wasn't able to do it. But yeah, I think I'm not looking at him as a long-term option. And we did speak of that last week as well, in the fact that Gawn will return. And I think I read that he is being slated for a potential return next week, as early as next week. I don't know if they're going to do that, if they want to rush him back so soon, I guess, with that sort of injury to a big bloke that relies so much on sort of the leap, spring, whatever you want to call it, as a ruckman, puts a bit of pressure on that injury. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm still keen on getting him, but more so, Jackson, this is more so as that F7 loop-in option, because I do have a donut alongside him, or would be alongside him on the bench up forward.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on him. If it's just a tough one. It's a bit of a tough one. I don't know. I see the benefit, but I also see the flaw, I guess, in picking him, and it's a bit tough. I mean, I'm running low on trades because I've had so many injuries. So bringing Luke Jackson and then having to upgrade him or, move players around to be able to get someone else in is just going to be a bit hard for me. So it's just hard. It's hard without knowing a proper prognosis on Gawn. And it's also hard not knowing what Jackson's role is when Gawn comes back.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like trying to forecast ahead. So I've got got our SuperCoach Edge patented crystal ball here. And
yes.
What I can foresee is that if Jackson, again, this coming weekend and potentially the weekend after, if Gawn hasn't returned, if he is showing that he can handle playing as a solo ruck, it's almost like the D's will be forced into a Darcy Cameron, Brodie Grundy type situation on a smaller scale, obviously.
Yeah.
But could we see the potential there for the ruck share to be similar to what it was like late last year when Gawn was getting less time on the ruck because Jackson was eating up those ruck attendances potentially?
Potentially.
So,
I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to read the future, I guess.
Yeah, it's a big guess.
But you would expect Jackson to take more of the share of the ruck if Gawn does come back early, because you'd think they'd want to sort of ease him back into it a little bit. Yeah. As you mentioned with the injury that Gawn sustained, just sort of hampering his ruck abilities, I would say, with this lacking that spring. Or have affecting that spring you would expect. But then does that also mean that Gawn increases his loads in the back end towards SuperCoach finals, and it's sort of you're left with Jackson there? If he is going to be your F7 or R3, probably more your F7, then I don't see he's as big an issue. But you're just going to make sure that you're going to be able to arrange that, I guess, make sure that you've got that ability to bring in an actual F6 if you have got Luke Jackson there.
Let's move on to Sammy Walsh, my boy. So he's priced, I can't believe this, at a juicy price of $579.5K, averaging a 114.9 with a break even of 93. And he's hit a hot run of form. And I'll just make mention again, Liam, don't worry, I'm wearing no pants, so it's all good. So if you see the desk raise interview, you'll know why. So he is scoring all on the weekend. Sorry, I'm getting frazzled here. He scored his second highest score of the year with 138, and he's now bottomed out and is some of the best value on the market at present. And I know this can be bandied about as we did at one stage there for the biggest value option of the year. Yeah, we were going with that, but he falls into that category at the moment. So he is super value, and he faces St Kilda this round, who he last scored 141 against. So if you want him, jump on now, as this Walsh rocket is heading to the moon. he's off. See you later. Launching.
I feel like the last time we said that, he didn't launch. So I'm just
that was the week that was the week that I jumped on him as well, and he had a downer.
Yeah.
Okay. You will head to the moon's the closest thing outside of the Earth's stratosphere. So I don't know where he's going to head to. Another continent, perhaps.
Just the clouds.
The clouds. And then give Cripper, the Helicryptor, a kick up the arse whilst he's up there.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be much appreciated. Now, moving on, we've got Marcus Bontempelli, mid-forward eligible, 587.5K with an average of 113.5 and a break-even of just 89. He's the second highest averaging forward in the comp, and it is no surprise when you see he has only scored below 100 twice this season. He has a 3-game average of 121.7 and a 5-game average of 118.2, which indicates he is currently underpriced for what he is actually producing currently in recent weeks. He obviously comes in with that handy DPP, which just adds another string to his bow, and that could be crucial heading into the back part of the year to provide your team with greater flexibility and just more coverage. And I think now is the time to be trading in players with that DPP status, because when you're running low on trades, you want to be able to move players around if you do suffer an injury.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, I said Walshy was the best value, and he still is, but Bont is only 8K more exactly than Walshy, and yeah, he's obviously got DPP. So yeah, he's a top option that I would grab as a primo option if you're in the market for someone to fill your forward spots. But let's move on to On the Bubble, and we have one of your boys in beautiful name, Massimo D'Ambrosio. Did I pronounce it correctly? BT?
Yeah, I think BT would be no, but you didn't put enough mayo on it for BT. BT needs a bit more.
What would he say?
I don't know.
Massimo. He would like mispronounce it completely. Massimo D'Ambrosio.
You gotta like roll the S and the O's a bit more.
Yeah, and he like whispers, Massimo with the ball, passes it off.
Very good.
Yeah.
I rate that.
Okay. I'll never do that again. Apologies. So he is available as a defender, 102.4K, averaging a 52 with a break-even of -44. And he scored 51 and 53 in his first two games and is the most in-demand cash cow on the market, which is no surprise given he has the best break-even at the moment and looks to have semi-decent job security, which should continue given the directive from the club, you'd think. Should be to blood youngsters and trial players in different positions, and players that aren't given much of a go, given finals, are out of the equation. Are they, Liam? Mathematically, are they?
Oh, probably. I don't even know. I haven't even looked at the last.
Ask Ben Rutten.
Yeah.
He'd probably say yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was Mick Malthouse.
Yeah, adage, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, just mathematically, we could still make it.
Yeah.
Whenever you roll out that line, you just know that it might be mathematically possible, but it's not happening. My thoughts. Yes. I like him. I think he's going to have, I would almost go further than semi-decent job security. I'd say he has.
Rock solid?
Maybe slightly less than rock solid. He's not a primo.
Solid.
So like, I'd say solid.
Yeah.
I don't see him getting dropped. Like, I think I've liked what I've seen as an Essendon supporter. I think he's going to probably look, and this is a bit harsh, but I guess Heppel's on the way out. I see him sort of wanting to take on that role as a sort of rebounding defender. And with that sort of, he's got a very good kick on him and very good vision. So I think he just creates a bit more movement off the half-back line. And I think, yeah, with some of like the likes of Heppel, probably in the twilight years of their playing career, you'd probably be wanting to play him just so he's ready to take over.
I like it. Fair.
So
I think he's got more
job security than, I think he's got pretty decent job security.
Yep, I like it. And bottom price, so ripper.
Exactly. Maximize the amount of cash you're going to get in.
Maximize Massimo.
Now, moving on from your mob, actually, Brodie Kemp, defender eligible, 156.8K, averaging 64.5 with a break-even of -37, and is one of the only remaining healthy key position players for Carlton, especially in the back line, with their tall stocks virtually decimated in recent weeks. Scored 56 in his first game and made his return after being omitted for a good month and a half to score 73 on the weekend against Freo. His job security in the short term should be pretty sound, with Boyd being ruled out for a little while, with a foot injury on the weekend, further solidifying his spot in defence. Wiedering has been touted to return next week, while Sam Durden won't return for at least another 3 weeks. But beyond that, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what your key defenders have done, what black hat they've crossed to have all gone down at once. But he does have the ability to play up forward or along the wing. So there is some chance he may be used elsewhere in the side by Voss. My personal opinion is he's probably the least best option of these these three, only because of his higher price. So you're not getting that initial cash injection that you kind of want. I'd be less worried about his job security probably isn't super great, but I mean, I'll leave that to you, David.
No, you've hit the nail on the head. Virtually, it's short term, you could probably say that, yeah, it's sound, but beyond that, like going into the, later weeks when Wiedering returns, someone's got to be expendable. Even though, having said that, like you mentioned, our key position defense stocks are pretty thin. But once we start regaining those guys that we see as first 22 players, I think he's pretty hard done by. Kemp, I am surprised that he hasn't had much more of a go than what he has. And he did play pretty well on the weekend. Probably obviously his best game for the year. I mean, he's only played the 2, but I think that as well as the fact that he's got that ability to play elsewhere. He probably isn't required up forward at the moment in terms of our key stocks up there, but he has shown, especially during his junior years, and I think he's been trialled along there in the VFL at times as well on the wing. So they might experiment with him potentially if they can afford to do so in that position there. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think, he comes at that higher price point, and I think these guys, depends how many trades you've got up your sleeve as well. But if you are, in sort of round about that point between 4 to 6 trades or less, you won't be getting these guys in as cash cows. You'll be getting them in probably more so as bench cover. And I think I wouldn't be going for him, especially for an extra 54.4K compared to Massimo. There's no way I'd be paying up that extra money because you're not getting any extra job security. You're actually getting less, I think. And I mean, the scoring will probably be about on par, I think, averaged out across the rest of the year. So, it's kind of what I think.
Yeah, and I think it's just that initial cash injection that you miss out on. That's what concerns me most, is that that's what you need now. If Kemp was sort of priced a little bit cheaper, maybe you'd consider it.
Yep, no, exactly right. And especially if it as well, I'm surprised he's not considered as a forward defender because he is traditionally, that is his role. Like he can play out forward, he can play in defence. He played both roles in under 18. So, but he's probably one to consider, but maybe only if you've got Massimo already and you need someone else, only then consider him. But outside of that, I probably wouldn't consider him. Moving on to the other player on the bubble, and it is Rhett Bazzo. What a name. As a defender forward, priced at 117.3K, averaging a 38.5 with a break-even of just -8. And I must say, he hasn't looked out of place in the Eagles side since debuting a couple of weeks ago, but his scoring isn't anything to rave about given his role as a traditional key defender with scores of just 40 and 37. And compared to Kemp's been in the game for a little bit of a while now, came in with a knee injury and he's done a couple of pre-seasons now, whereas Bazzo, I think it's his first year from memory or thereabouts. So, he's much more raw. In terms of his job security, looks secure for the time being, especially given McGovern had to have a plate inserted into his torso to help his broken ribs heal. Sounds really sore. It looks as though he is some ways off a return at this stage. So, whilst his job security looks sound from a bench cover point of view, his cash cow and scoring potential side of things mean he is worth bypassing, I think, in favour of D'Ambrosio.
Yep, I agree entirely there. I think it's time to move on to what probably is my favourite segment, and it is I'm the captain now.
Look at me. I'm the captain now.
I reckon that's your best one yet. I'm gonna mark that down. That was really good because, I mean, if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll be able to see the stark turn of phrase there, but it's almost that acting ability that, like, if you're listening on the podcast, you went from chipper, you're up and about, you're like, this is my favorite segment, and then you just turned and it was like, geez, it's like you ushered someone else in to do the voice acting part for you.
Now that I think about it, sorry, thank you for that kind compliment.
No worries.
But now that I think about it, I don't know why it's my favorite segment. I can't pick a captain to save my life this year. I reckon it's in my point anyway. I reckon it's the vice captain. I'm really finding it hard as a to pick a vice captain. But the captaincy is not too bad. Yeah, sorry, that's probably a fair call. I'm struggling. I keep missing my vice captain in the recent weeks. But anyway, actually, I picked it this week, which was nice. That was good. But anyway, let's
one of the rare moments.
Let's jump into the segment. So in I'm the captain now. We've scrounged through the data and found the best options for your VC and C this weekend. And first up on Thursday night at 7:20, we've got Lachie Neale against the Western Bulldogs. And he's an average of 116.75 over his last 4 against the Doggies, with scores of 85, 167, 114, and 101. I don't know.
Yeah. No, not bad.
Not bad.
It reminds me so much already of last week. First game between Melbourne and the Lions, and it was Neale up against Oliver.
Yeah.
And I think a majority of people went for Oliver, like we did, and he paid dividends, which was good.
Yeah.
With those poor sods that went for Neale, because it looked like he was tracking like he was going to score higher than Oliver early on. And then I don't know who clamped down on him, if anyone did for the Ds. I can't recall, but he just hit a brick wall.
I think Harms did, yeah.
Harms did, that's right. Yeah, put the clamps on him and helped. The cooler as they call him. He cooled him right down, threw him into the McDonald's freezer. Like, come on in. We won't shut the door. And then they shut the door. Sorry, mate. Sorry, just reliving past traumas of when I was having birthday parties at McDonald's. There'll be many listeners out there. You'll be able to relate to this. I don't know if that ever happened to you, Liam. You're probably they're probably at the stage where OHS was a big issue.
Locked in a McDonald's freezer? No.
I can't believe they used to do that. I mean, we're going off on a tangent here, but like it was probably during a stage of like utter looseness, because nowadays if you try to do that, the OH&S side of things, like you could lose your job. Like you could lose your franchisee license by doing that shit. But yeah, like, they'll be like, oh, coming in, check out like, you know, we're going to go get the ice cream cake. Oh yeah, no worries. And they go like coaxing you in, like check out what's in the freezer. Who cares what's in a freezer? But you're a kid and you're like, yeah, no worries. I'll go in there, not knowing. And then they shut the door behind you. You're like, oh yeah, good one. And then you're like, okay, you're going to open that door? So don't try that at home. We would have died. But yeah, no, it's just weird. It's just wacky. It's just wacky because that's one of the things that I remember from our childhood. Birthday parties at Macca's with that. They used to do, which they don't do anymore, obviously, and for good reason. But then also the all-you-can-eat Pizza Huts. This is becoming like a bloody lifestyle podcast now, but that was amazing. And I think they only do it interstate now, potentially. Might be Queensland or New South Wales. But anyway, any listeners there, tweeted us. Obviously, you can work in a SuperCoach related bit if you want, but just want to know if there's any all-you-can-eat Pizza Huts out there that you can go to, because I want to go to it.
And just on Pizza Huts, I just love now, like, I mean, there's not many around now, but I love seeing like old, like new businesses in an old Pizza Hut building, because you're always like, you know that it was a Pizza Hut.
Exactly. They got the stereotypical, like, you know.
Like that, yeah, I don't know what you
kind of
like.
The tiling.
Yeah, like that shape. Yeah. And you're like, you're not a real estate agent, you're an ex-Pizza Hut.
or you're an ex-Sizzler. Sizzlers back in the day.
Yeah.
I remember going to one, and I know on Google Maps you can have a look and you can wind it back. You can almost travel back in time, and you go the street view, and you can wind it back. I think it goes back as early as the early 2000s, and there was but it was just after they changed it from Sizzlers to, I don't know, it was like a Pizza Hut or something, but they all share like the similar sort of architecture. Anyway, let's get on with I'm the Captain now, because it is not I'm the old residents of a Pizza Hut now. So next up we have in that same game, Jack Macrae averaging a 152.5 over his last 4 against the Lions, with scores of 137, 183, 135 and a 155. So obviously he plays very well historically against the Lions, and actually has his best average against the Lions with an average score of 134.5 from 11 outings. So he's hit a nice run of form in recent times. Has Macrae, knock on wood, that continues. But yeah, it comes down to now, it's almost like Macrae stepped into Oliver's shoes from last week up against Neale. Who do you go for? So he's looking like the juicier of the two options, I think, though. It's a given.
Definitely. Now moving on to the next game, we've got Sammy Walsh against St Kilda on Friday at 7:50 p.m. Now, he's only got an average of 92 over his last 4 games against the Saints, with scores of 141, massive, 58, 93, 76. But he has hit some great form this weekend against the Dockers with a score of 138 and his last score of 141 against the Saints last year. So could he be in for a big one?
Yeah.
Maybe.
In the absence of Cripper. He's actually taken over. It's almost like he's sapped Cripper's form and like he's just like consumed it, and now he's just on fire because he could be a bit of a smoky. I mean, everyone's been saying Cripper for the Brownlow, but Walshy, he's coming. The freight train, he is coming. But keep him in mind. He's probably more of a risk, but as a VC option, less so. So, consider him, no doubt. Callum Mills is the next one against your mob in the Dons on Saturday at 1:45 p.m. and he's averaged 119.75 in his last 4 games against the Dons with scores of 167, 87, 129 and a 96. Bit of a Jekyll and Hyde type scenario there. So every second week. He scored, that 167 against the Dons earlier this year. In fact, so I mean, you've got to weigh that up alongside of the fact that his form line in recent times has been on a bit of a downer. So, it might be more of a pod type VC option, considering especially that Neil and McRae are playing first up as you'd imagine will be the popular VC options. But, could be all right.
Yeah, definitely. Now, probably on to the best option. And I mean, SuperCoach Gold has this guy.
Ridiculous.
Projected for what is it? 193 or something.
With fair reason, though. Fair reason.
Fair reason. He has, so it's Clayton Oliver, if you didn't know, playing against Adelaide on Saturday at 4:35. He's averaged 156 in his last 4 games against the Crows with scores of 204, 93, 205.
What bookends?
And 122. He has his best average, shockingly, against the Crows on his side. With an average of 132.5 from 8 games that he's played against them. And he also has an average of 137.9 at Adelaide Oval from 8 games at that venue. And I'm pretty sure both of those 200s came at Adelaide Oval.
That is a joke.
So, I mean, he's projected for 193, so you better go for it.
I think you were mad. I think his last game, when did he play? That would have been in 20. Yeah, it would have been last year. Round 22, he had a bit of a downer with 93. Round 10, 204. And I remember that was the point of the year when a lot of people were trading him in. And for those people who missed out on that score, you'd be kicking yourself because, in 2020, round 10, again, 205 points. So, he just to sort of rub it in.
What do you think, Abdul? Can you give me a number crunch real quick?
His 3-game average against them is 167.33333, repeating, of course. So, amazing. Absolutely amazing. He is hands down. He has to factor into your VC or C, no matter what it is.
Something.
Yeah, exactly. The only people that wouldn't do it are ghost ship teams, I think. So you're going to be falling behind. But if you want to be an ultra pod, if you want to be super different, talking to someone that we know here, JP, feel free to put it on someone else. I dare you. I absolutely dare you. Because it'd be quite funny if you miss out on a massive score. I double dare you. What comes after double dare? What is it?
Triple dog dare.
Why is it dog dare? I don't understand.
I never understood why it was a dog dare. It was just always triple dog dare.
Why not a cat dare? Yeah, no. It's funny. All right, let's just bring it down a notch because it's almost Vince McMahon like on the chair style at the moment, like talking about Oliver. Let's bring it back down to earth, and it is with a guy that's actually served both of us quite well in Rory Laird, and he faces who's he face? Oh, Melbourne. So I've written here MLB. I thought it was Major League Baseball. He's turned to Major League Baseball. He's given up footy. I'm too good. He faces Melbourne on Saturday at 4:35 as well. Same game, obviously. He's averaged 114.75 in his last 4 games against the Demons with scores of 123, 105, 120 and 111. But he comes in with that hot run of form, which is probably the one thing that is the juiciest, with a 3-round average of 135.3 and a 5-round average of 125.8 to back up that nice run of scores against the D's. So, he could factor in. He could. Oh, no, he couldn't do it because it's the same game. Damn it. Yeah, I was going to say you could potentially do a VC on Oliver and then a C on Laird, but you can't. You have to choose one or all, and you know who you'll choose. You got to go for him, mate.
Yeah, Laird. Go Laird. Do it.
Laird. Yeah, be a pod. Go for Laird.
Moving on to the next game on Saturday at 7:25, it is Took Miller against Collingwood. He has averaged 120.25 in his last 4 against the Pies, with scores of 160, 115, 122, and an 84. And here's his best average against Collingwood of any other side. And that 160 came from his game earlier in the year. So definitely an option to consider.
Another guy who obviously served me well on the weekend faces the Pies again in that same game. Obviously, he's averaged an 87 in his last 4 against the Pies, with scores of 136, 71, 65, and 76, but comes into the game off a score of 148 against the Power and their broomsticks. But Collingwood give away the 3rd most points to opposition rucks, it must be said. So off the back of that alone, and the fact that I think Port was the team that was giving up the most points to opposition rucks, so you'd think, given that, he should score. I'm gonna predict around about 120 odd, I reckon. Around about that mark of a captaincy score. But yeah, consider him if no one else that we've mentioned stands out.
On Sunday at 3:20 against Hawthorn, we've got Stephen Canilio. He's averaged 101.5 in his last 4 against the Hawks, with scores of 103, 75, 111, and 117. So nothing really to write home about. But just keep in mind that Hawthorn do give away the 2nd most points to inside mids of any other side. And Gogs has been in a pretty good run of form. So it could be a bit of a pod if you are looking for a C option late in the week, if you do go hard on a VC on Clayton Oliver rather than try to back in McRae and then go into Oliver. But yeah, another option for you.
Very nice. And another pot option, because it is the last game. I assume it's the last game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Freo against Port. And it is Sean Darcy. And yeah, faces Port, which, like I mentioned, they've got no ruckman. The broomstick comes in. He's averaged 82 in his last 3 games against the Power, with scores of just 83, 78, and 86, but has only played them 3 times in 2021, 2019, and 2018. But could be facing that broomstick with no recognised ruckman for the Power, where obviously, like I just mentioned with Witter, managed a score of 148 against the Power last round. So he would be an ultra pod option, I think, because, I mean, a lot of people would want to lock in a captaincy score prior to the last game. I don't know what it is with last games, but I don't think I've ever gone for a captain in the last game. I may have done that.
Yeah.
Maybe across the line, but there's nothing that sticks out.
I can't think of it either. Yeah, but I've done that.
I don't know what it is. Yeah. It's interesting. Anyone else, if we are complete lunatics and you do it all the time, let us know. But if you are in that side of the camp as well, let us know, because interesting. I've only just thought about that. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to honourable mentions, and I'll let you take this one, Liam, because it is the return of your boy.
Hopefully. I mean, I'm assuming he returns this week. I mean, I think he was close last week and just didn't obviously get across the line. But it is Darcy Parish. He has scores of 109, 99, 108, and 86 in his last 4 against the Swans. And 4 of his last 6 scores for the season, if we do exclude his injury-affected 51, were above 125 and perfect for that VC or C option. So one to consider as a bit of a pod option, but I think there are better options this round.
And in that very same game, isn't it? Lukey Parker. He loves dining out on your mob. He has scores of 106, 151, 111, and 109 in his last 4 against the Dons, but yeah, he doesn't really have that much of a ceiling, as you can see there, apart from that 151 game.
Yeah.
That really stands out as a captaincy score. So presents as a bit of a riskier option because there are better options for VC and C, but he is one to consider if you want to go ultra pod.
Yeah, definitely. So, Damon, who are you going to go?
Well, I think I'll be backing in McRae as VC, bypassing Oliver. Nah, just joking. Locking in Oliver as the C, or alternatively going Oliver the VC into, I don't know, maybe I should buck the trend and go Sean Darcy with the C. Maybe. No, I reckon I'll go with, a lot of people will be going with this down this route, which will be McRae VC, Oliver C. So I think I'll go down that path. What about yourself?
I am doing the same thing.
Yep.
That's simple. Keeping it simple, McRae into Oliver. I think that's your best option this round. And I think a lot of people will do it. So it's worth kind of following the trend sometimes with your captaincy options.
Very nice. Well, Liam, have you got a no?
I don't know. Do you have to know?
Hey, I got to know.
Well, let's jump straight in. So we've got some questions from some listeners that we got through from Twitter. First one is from Maddie Tex, who is at Tex Maddie. And his question was, what was the riskiest trade you made this season that paid off big time, and when did you make it? Damon, I'll chuck that over to you to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, looking back through my trades, I don't think I've done anything ultra risky, although you could probably say the trade-in of Himmelberg has been the riskiest due to a number of reasons. I guess his high price point at that stage, uncertainty with his role, potentially switching back to forward, as spoken by McVeigh that very week. We both got him in. So it was very much a risk. And the other point was being, not seeing a massive or a huge sample size to judge whether he could continue the scoring that he was producing. So that there was probably the riskiest of the lot. In terms of rookies, taking a couple of risks there, but the biggest is in terms of trading in Hobbs after just one game. And I think you did the same thing. Is that right, Liam?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was looking like it could have been a disaster with poor scores of 34 and 13 in his second and third game. We thought, shit, okay, this is another dead rookie, hit a brick wall, third game in, going to get dropped. But since then, he has been one of the more successful rookies to date, with his scoring on the weekend aside. So it was a bit of a sliding doors moment because it was either Rosas from Gold Coast or him, and Rosas was the late out because of his ankle or thereabouts from memory, and opted for Hobbs because needed someone on the park at that stage. So, yeah. And I think we needed, in my case anyway, I needed a little bit of extra dosh. So wasn't sure how long Rosas was going to be out for. But yeah, worked well. Worked very well. What about yourself, Liam?
Yes, so riskiest so far this season was probably this week, bringing in both Nank the Tank and Blixarves in the same week. So just completely going pod on the ruck line. It's probably hard to tell whether that's been successful. Obviously, 1 week sample size isn't great. I mean, 141 from Nank was great. 87 from Blixarves, not too bad. But I'll have to assess over the next few weeks. But I guess I'll just delve into some of the past ones. Probably one of my riskiest trades that paid off was jumping on Jack Steele in 2020 when he first broke out. And on the back of that, I did finish in the top 1K just because I managed to jump on him early. And then I guess similarly last year, I brought in Parrish just before his sort of real hot run of form and before most people had jumped on him. Yeah. So it did offer plenty of opportunity for VC and Cs that were actually pod VCs across the year, and then managed to ride a few of his scores before his ownership did go up, which was also nice. Something I didn't really do this year, which maybe is probably part of the issue that I maybe need to just back in my gut a little bit more.
Yep. Yeah, well, there you go. There's a couple of serious pods there that you've picked up that this year now, some of the better premiums on offer, injuries aside, of course. But yeah, done very, very well. Well done.
Thank you. Now, I've got another question. This one I'm going to give to you, Damon. Okay. Give it to you because I reckon it's two of your boys.
Yeah. Yep.
But not like not Sammy Walsh level, but
yeah,
I think you back both of these guys in. Yeah, yep. So it's from Sam Cullen at Sammy Cullen 4. He asked, with 4 trades left, is it worth trading Cripps to Steele? Now I know you like both those players, especially Steele, I reckon, from a SuperCoach.
I love Steele. Love Steele. And I'm in that same bracket that I have thought about it and worthy of consideration, but I would say it's somewhat of a risk depending on whether you have, firstly finished, or completed your side with upgrades. And then secondly, it comes down to the overall strength of your side for bench depth at this stage of the year. I would say, if you finish your side and the bench depth, will serve you well if you have an injury in the short term, it might be worth it. But you have to think of how many extra points it will net you by trading Cripper to Steele. It's so hard. I mean, from what we're seeing of Cripps now compared to the start of the year is chalk and cheese. And if Cripps can regain that form that he has at the start of the year, it's pretty much going to be neck and neck or thereabouts. Cripper may even come out ahead slightly. But if that was the case, it would be a wasted trade because you're trading, like for like. They're going to be generating the same sort of points, but you've really got to think about, ultimately. So will Steele outscore Cripps by that much each week to justify the sideways trade? So you've got to remember as well, we've only got 8 weeks left, but a huge majority of the competition have around about, I'm going to say an average about 6 trades or thereabouts. There'll be outliers that are listening and watching this that'll have more than that, which is awesome if you are in that camp. And if you do, I would probably consider this sideways trade. But I think, just playing devil's advocate. So if Steele outscores Cripps by an average of 10 points a game over the 8 weeks, it's obviously only an extra 80 points. Probably couldn't justify it then. 80 points is like an extra player on a given week. 20 points a game is 160 extra points over the course of the year, and then so on and so forth. So you've really got to work out, okay, I'm getting in Steele because I think he's going to average X number of points more than Cripps. But I don't think it justifies a trade, and I don't think the potential for extra points really outweighs the potential need to keep those trades up your sleeve if you only have 4 for long-term injuries. So once it gets down to having, I always look at it in terms of the easiest way to look at it is once you get down to having a trade per week. So if you have 6 trades in hand and you're down to the last 6 weeks of the season, then go crazy. I mean, you've got a trade a week. Probably don't use them all up over the course of, 3 weeks, over the remaining 6 weeks, for example. But if you have 4, I would love to keep those 4 trades until the last month of the season or thereabouts. Maybe the last 6 weeks of the season, just as a little bit of, leeway. So I would consider it, but we've seen injuries and suspensions cook us over the past couple of weeks with the likes of English going down, Gawn going down, Teakle decimating our ruck lineup, and then the weekend just gone, Stewart, one of the more popular primos as well, suspended ultimately for 3+ weeks. So you've really got to think, okay, if what's happening now is going to happen in the last month of the year, when you're down to 1 trade, for example, you are going to be absolutely cooked. And it has happened. It's happened to me a couple of times across the journey. And I've said to myself, I'm going to learn from it. And every year I've gotten stingier and stingier, you could probably say, with my trades, because I go by the team name DJ Trade a lot. And I used to trade heaps. And I used to be out of trades by around about, week 17, week 18 of a 23-week season. So you don't want to be left in that, situation, because you will plummet down the rankings. And you've got to remind yourself, it is a marathon, not a sprint. So for those sort of trades, if you had more trades up your sleeve, I would potentially do it. But with 4 trades left, I would hold off a little bit more if you can. Maybe wait a few more weeks just in case the Cripps can regain that form. Steele could potentially bottom out a little bit further, could have a down game. But as we've said about Steele, as I've said about Steele, his floor is quite high, and that's one thing I love about Steele. That sort of Cripps does lack. So there is that upside there in trading to a Steele. But I could talk about this for days on end. But I'll pass it over to you, Liam.
No, I tend to agree. I think everything you've said is exactly what I'm kind of thinking. On the I guess on the base of it, if you said to me, should you trade Cripps to Steele, I'd say, yeah, don't mind it. But I think when you start thinking about it in terms of how much more is he going to average in terms of points per game, and then considering there's only 8 games left, even if it is just the 20 points, is 160 points enough? Especially if you've only got 4 trades left. If you had, as you said, if you had 6, maybe I'd consider it. If you had more than 6, I'd definitely consider it. But I think 4 is just maybe not enough at this stage. I think if it was a little bit later in the season, then yes. But it's been hard. It's been hard to know.
It's a tough one because it comes down from it's an individual sort of situation where you're at, how many trades you have in hand, the like. So, yeah. Think about it. Maybe consider it. Hold it in your hand for a few more weeks. And if you can use it as a luxury, because it is a luxury trade, hold off for a little bit longer and then consider it.
What is quickly becoming your favorite segment of the podcast? And it is the last segment, and we'll just quickly check in on the SuperCoach group rankings. And the high score for round 15 was Chase with his team.
What's his team name?
His team name is Nicknate the MILF. Just let that sink in a little bit. He had a decent score, 2,630, round rank of 187, and an overall ranking for the season of 655, which is very nice. Well done there, Chase. What a name. What a team name.
What a team name for good reason, because it ties in.
Why, David?
As we've said, for 9 weeks now, come up to 9 weeks, ties in so well with this bloke's team name. And it is, of course, Tyler with his team name, Cream Pies. The total score of 34,553 and an overall rank of 18. So he has held. So well done, Tyler. But I'm going to point this out. Chase, if you follow us on socials, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, reach out to us, because I am almost convinced that as soon as you saw that you were the highest scorer for round 15, you changed your team name to tie in with Tyler's team. Because why else would you choose a name Nicknat the MILF? Nicknat the MILF Cream Pies. Interesting. I can see you feverishly typing away there, Liam. Are you searching?
Just searching the team name just to make sure.
I wouldn't be Googling that team name, especially with Safe Search off.
Hey. Very good though by Cream Pies, Tyler. 9 weeks in a row.
Yes. Oh, he's absolutely creamed the competition. Hey.
Oy. And now if you do want to enter the SuperCoach Edge group, which I feel like we've told them you can't join anymore, but I'm going to let you. I'm going to do it.
Do it for these names. And congratulations, Chase, to you. Tip of the cap for changing your team name if you did. But if you didn't, I mean, the universe just wants us to carry on with this gag.
Tip of the hat. The code is 142059. But let's have a quick run through of the winners in the SuperCoach Edge Crown League for Tier 3 Patreons. And the winners in round 15 were your side, Damo with his team DJ Trade-A-Lot, Lyle with his team Lyle Stars, Bruce with his team Shuan, Matthew with his team Orion, and Kyle with his team Northwind.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for the ongoing entertainment, Tyler, and everyone else that is leading the highest scorer for a given round and having a team name that ties in with his. But in terms of socials, before we sign off, Liam, where can our listeners and viewers find us?
Yes, on YouTube, if you search SuperCoach Edge, you'll find us there, so you can watch us, and don't forget to like and subscribe. On Twitter, you'll find us at @SuperCoach_Edge, Damon at DamoJ88, myself at Liam Evans _95. On Facebook and Insta, search SuperCoach Edge, and you'll find us there. And now, Damon, we're on a new platform as well, aren't we?
We are indeed, actually. Yes. It's very, very, very funny you mentioned that, because I forgot to put in the notes there. We are available on TikTok, where we're putting up some of the best bits or just funny moments, that sort of thing. Which, given that, we could probably put out I might do it actually, a compilation of all the different team names that have tied in with Tyler's. We might do that, like if Tyler takes out as the champ, might present it to him. Just funny. It'll go for a fair while, I imagine. And it'll mainly just be 90% of us just pissing ourselves laughing and giggling like little schoolgirls, but for good reason. But yes, we are on TikTok, so search us, check us out there, and give us a follow, everything else. And on YouTube as well. I can see, I've had a look at the analytics, and we're actually getting, I think there's like about maybe 20% of our viewership as subscribers. Now, can we bump that up? If you're watching through to the end now at the moment, if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, subscribe.
Yes.
We want to get the numbers up there, because it helps not inflate our egos. I mean, it's always good to see, good subscribers, but it helps with the YouTube algorithm, because I'm trying to do a bit of a deep dive on these things and trying to find ways to get sort of the podcast, or the vodcast in this case, out there. So yeah, check it out.
Yes. Very nice. Very nice there, Damon.
Yep. But that brings us to the end. So as we've seen over the past few weeks, we've seen the likes of Gawn go down, English, Bruce, Teakle, and now Stewart has gone down on the weekend. So let's hope it's a change of fortunes, with us not talking about any major injuries, any major suspensions. SuperCoach gods, please gift us with you gifted us with a large scoring round, but gift us also large scoring round, Oliver scoring 193 plus, and no injuries, no suspensions, and we'll be happy chappies.
I don't like our chances. Gotta be honest.
Maybe if I just slip him a fitty.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
The
What do they
Supercoach
want?
gods. I don't know. How do you sacrifice something to the Supercoach gods?
What do we sacrifice? I don't know. I'll sacrifice a cash cow.
Oh, hey.
Supercoach gods. I'll be sacrificing. How about this? I'll be sacrificing Jeffrey to the Supercoach gods.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go.
That's fair.
We'll check in with you guys next week, and hopefully it's worked. So we'll
Yes,
we'll catch you
hopefully.
then. All the best, and don't forget Oliver 193 plus. Get on him.
Good luck, guys.